Welcome to Radioactive here on CHUO 89.1 FM. And right now I have an interview with the mayor. I'm very excited. I'm going to do a little intro for the mayor first. Mayor Watson started his journey in Ottawa at Carleton University, where in the early 80s he completed a degree in communications. Intending to be a newspaper reporter, Mr. Watson got a job in Timmins, but shortly moved back to Ottawa to get started in public service. In the late 90s, Mr. Watson ran to be mayor and seized the polls, with 83% of the city in favor of his campaign, and he became the youngest mayor elected in Ottawa. He resigned in 2000, and Mr. Watson worked various positions until he ran for mayor again in 2010. Ever since, Mayor Watson has been witness to the renovations of various aspects in and around the city, and he's joining me now over the phone. Mr. Watson?
Hi, how are you, Adrian?
I'm good. How are you?
Great. Thanks for having me on your show.
No problem. Yesterday I heard you declared it was the Tragically Hip Day.
It was, yes. I was hoping that might give me some free tickets to the concert, but it didn't work.
Yeah? You're a fan of the band?
Because the band obviously is a great Canadian success story and is loved, and people are obviously emotionally tied to Gord Downey's health, and I think it was a piece of history to have their second to last show here in Ottawa, because Ottawa's always been very good to the hip. They've played a lot of different venues, some small venues like Roosters at Carleton University, and it was a pleasure to proclaim it and send it out over social media.
Yeah, looking at your Twitter and Instagram, it seems like you're active in the city every day. You're out and about every day. Is there a really memorable experience you've had out in the city?
That's a good question. It's really hard to sort of compress it to, just one remarkable day or an opportunity. I remember, for instance, when I was mayor, but when I worked up on Parliament Hill, I had a chance to meet Nelson Mandela when he arrived to give an address to Parliament. Then I had the chance to meet President Obama a couple of weeks ago when he arrived, and Kate and Will when they made their first foreign visit together as a married couple. And those are sort of, big, high-profile, fun, interesting, people to meet. But the great thing about being out in the communities, and there are many communities that make up Ottawa, I have a chance to meet some, unsung heroes, people like a community volunteer that runs the food bank in a neighborhood in Ottawa, or someone who drives patients to cancer appointments. And when I became mayor this second round, we started a new program called the City Builder Award, which is given out at the beginning of every council meeting. And this is to a community volunteer, someone who may not be particularly well known, might not have a citywide or national prominence, but is a great community volunteer. And I like honoring these people because I think it does two things. One, it thanks them for their service to the community. And secondly, hopefully they act as a role model for the next generation of volunteers to get involved to make everything from cubs and guides to the 4-H club to coaching a soccer team to helping out in a church or a synagogue.
Have these experiences in the community changed the way you view yourself as mayor? Have they redefined the way you view yourself?
Well, I was mayor of the old city of Ottawa back from 1997 to 2000, and it was a much smaller city. It was really sort of the core of the city. I've certainly, I think, become a bigger thinker when it comes to citywide issues and less parochial. And that's changed me to a degree.
What does parochial mean?
Well, less sort of, concerned just about my own backyard and, my own neighborhood, but looking out for the greater good of the whole city.
I see.
And sometimes you can get in this trap where, I'm just going to take care of my own backyard and forget about areas of the city or the province of the country that I don't have any responsibility for. So I think as mayor, you're in a pretty unique position. You're not a ward councillor. The ward councillors do a great job taking care of their community, but most of our ward councillors also have a very good perspective when it comes to city building. A good example of that is the light rail transit system that we're building. The rural parts of Ottawa are not going to be served, obviously, with this current plan. We're not going to send a train out to Osgood or Carp or Cumberland, where there's not a lot of people living. And yet the 4 rural councillors have been very supportive of the light rail transit plan.
Mm-hmm. And it's going well?
Yeah, it is. It's on time and on budget, and the first phase is under construction as we speak. And Ottawa U is going to be really well served because, of course, that's one of the key station stops is the campus station. And the first phase goes from Tunney's Pasture in the west to LeBreton Flats, and then it starts going underground under Queen Street, stays underground at the Rideau Centre, and comes up at Ottawa U and goes all the way to Blair Station in the East End. So that's phase 1, and it'll be open by July 1st of 2018.
Mm-hmm. A lot of young people here at the university, we don't really get into politics because it appears overly complicated. How do you make politics and political decisions relevant to younger people as mayor?
Well, it's a lot tougher at the municipal level, to be perfectly honest, even though at the municipal level, the city government really touches you as a citizen every day a dozen or more times. I'll give you an example. When you wake up in the morning and you turn on a light, that's powered by Hydro Ottawa, and that's a city service. And then you go and take a shower and turn on the water, that's a city service. You flush the toilet, that's a city service. You walk on a sidewalk, that's a city service. You get on a bus, you sign up to go play hockey in an arena. All of these touch points are city services, but you just sort of take them for granted and you don't really think of it. And the irony is that even though the city is the closest level of government to the people and touches you the most, we have the lowest voter turnout, and it's particularly bad amongst young people. Now, I think, Prime Minister Trudeau, encouraged a lot of people to get involved in the political process and to get involved in his campaign, and we saw a dramatic increase in the number of young people voting federally. So I think the challenge is that we have to get people like the Student Fed at Ottawa U and CUSA at Carleton to really get engaged, to encourage people to vote, because often when they're at university, it's the first time they have a chance to vote because they turn 18.
Mm-hmm. Watching your interviews, it seems like you have a good way with words. You're a good communicator, and coincidentally, you did the communications degree at Carleton. But how did you become a good communicator? Was it always something you had, or did you develop it over time?
I think you really have to work at it. It's nice that you say I'm a good communicator. Sometimes I think I'm not a good communicator, but I think the challenge is if you know your information well and you know the issues well, you can spend some time sort of taking a complex issue and trying to make it a little more understandable. Like a lot of the stuff that we deal with here at the city is pretty complicated, and it's pretty, at times, dense. And I think our job as politicians is not to oversimplify a complex issue, but try to make it a little more understandable. So, one of the things we're doing, for instance, we used to get a lot of complaints when there was a change to zoning or some planning issue in the city, and we'd put up these black and white signs, and people just didn't really understand what the property owner was trying to do. And as a result, we changed that, and we now, in most cases, have a picture of what it's going to look like. And so people have a better understanding of what's going on that property next to their property, for instance. I think things like that are things that we can continue to work on.
Mm-hmm. What tips would you give to someone who wants to improve communication skills?
Well, I used to host a TV show when I was in high school, and I remember interviewing this really great CBC journalist. His name was Patrick Watson, no relation to me, and he had a show called The Watson Report. And I wrote to him after I interviewed him. I said, can you give me some tips on how to be a better communicator or a better interviewer? And he said the key is to listen. He said he gave an example when he was interviewing, I think, the Prime Minister of Israel, and the Prime Minister had said something that was newsworthy, but Patrick Watson had sort of a predetermined list of questions, and he just sort of went on asking the next question without doing a follow-up to what the Prime Minister had just said. So he said that was a lost opportunity to sort of pursue something that actually was really news as opposed to just sort of a standard canned response. So I think the best advice I suppose I can give is, if you're going to be a good communicator, you also have to be a good listener.
Mm-hmm. And you developed that over time?
Well, I'm not the best listener, to be honest, but I think you do develop it because you realize it's necessary to properly communicate. Communication has to be two-way. It can't just be a monologue all the time. You've got to have a dialogue, and it's always trying to find the balance. Because sometimes people will say, there's not enough consultation or communication from City Hall. And sometimes, they're right. Sometimes I think we spend way too much time on communicating something to a very small portion of the population, and it's costly, and it slows the process down of trying to move forward. A good example is Lansdowne Park. There was a huge amount of opposition to Lansdowne Park, but, our council and the previous council hunkered down, and they felt it was the best thing to rejuvenate that important piece of land in the downtown core. And I'm glad we did. I'm glad, that we stood up to sort of the people who were threatening lawsuits and saying this was going to be the end of, our city as we know it. It's actually a great success. There have been over 2 million people visit it. There's patios, green space, children's play area, apple orchard, new stadium, new soccer team, new football team. It's become a really great people place.
Mm-hmm. The park is really nice. Yeah.
Yeah, and what's interesting, Adrian, is I was out yesterday having a breakfast with a friend of mine who just got back into Ottawa. He was away with his wife for a number of years as a trade commissioner. And he remembered the old Lansdowne, which was filled with old buildings and asphalt from pillar to post. And he went and he just said it's the most spectacular thing he's seen in Ottawa in a generation. And he brings his dog there, and his kids go there, and they go to movies, and they shop, and they go to sporting events. And that's, I think, the real test. When you have someone who's lived out of the country and has come back and they've seen the contrast, I think that speaks volumes. If people like that are really liking it, I think it's going to be a really great success.
That's awesome. One last thing, Mr. Watson. So you're out and about every day, and you get home. What do you do to relax? Do you go out to Lansdowne Park to relax, or do you stay at home and turn on Netflix or read a paperback novel? What do you do to relax?
That's another good question, Adrian. A lot of people say I never relax, so I think the best answer for me is that I'll just go home and watch TV, because I don't get a lot of chance to watch TV. So watch TV, maybe go out to a movie with some friends, go out for dinner. I'll go I broke my pelvis a year and a half ago,
goodness.
and wasn't able to cycle last year. So I've started back bicycling along the Ottawa River Parkway, because I live in the West End and off to Britannia Beach. So I try to do that 2 or 3 times a week, especially with this beautiful weather we've been having.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you, Mayor Watson, for joining us on the show.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thanks. Anytime, Adrian. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, you too. That was Mayor Jim Watson, the mayor of the city of Ottawa.